Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is droop. Let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear droop used is to mean to bend or hang downward limply. So with this first definition, many people start to think of flowers, right? And many times we think of the flower kind of coming up, right? But as it gets really hot, or perhaps if there's not enough water, right? This beautiful flower will start to kind of bend or hang down. Now, a second way you might hear droop used is to mean to sag down from or as being a result of being tired or feeling dejected. So with the second definition, many times we're talking about how individuals are carrying themselves, right? So if their shoulders sort of fall, maybe their head does as well, we could use that verb to describe that action. A third way you'll hear droop used is to mean to cause something to bend or hang downward. And I want to note that this verb many times has kind of a negative meaning to it. I feel like, unfortunately, in connection to a lot of makeup products, creams, different serums, you might hear people talking about certain features, some of their skin or certain parts of their body drooping, or really that aging is causing this sort of bend or hanging downward. Now, it doesn't have to have a negative meaning, but I think you might see some examples of that in popular magazines or maybe on other social media platforms. You should know that droop is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all I'm going to do is add ing to form drooping. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by adding ed. Our base verb, droop, ends with this unvoiced p sound. This means that when we add the ed ending, we're going to make a t sound. So it should sound like this: drooped, drooped. Okay? Now, you might be happy to know we're not going to talk about any additional phrasal verbs today, so instead, we'll begin practicing our verb of the day in a couple different verb tenses. Today, we're going to practice the present progressive, also known as the present continuous, and the simple future with a focus on will. Let's start with the present progressive. Many teachers and textbooks call this the present continuous, and that is perfectly fine. The reason I use present progressive with my students is I try and get them in the habit of seeing two P's in the name, so P in present, P in progressive, and thinking about the fact they're going to need two parts to make this verb. So the first part of our verb is going to be a form of be, a present form of be, so am, is, or are, and then we're going to use the ing form of the verb. And it's really common to hear the present progressive used to describe some action that is happening now. You might also hear it used to describe an action that is in progress, so the time period is not yet complete. Okay. Let's take a look at an example of an affirmative present progressive sentence. My example is, the flowers are drooping in this heat, right? So like I explained earlier, right? We think many times up and down, right? Nice, tall, and straight. And now it's starting to bend or hang downward, okay? Now, let's take a look at a negative present progressive sentence. To do this, I start with my subject. I use the form of be, am, is, or are that matches. Then I have not, and then the ing form the verb. The evergreen's branches aren't drooping with this small amount of snowfall, right? So we're saying this is not happening now. Now, it's definitely not snowing where I am, but in other parts of the world, you might find a little bit of snow right now. So that's in case you're wondering, right? Why would that be progressive? But I thought we could sort of picture, right? Normal branches, right? And now the branches sinking, or in this case, not bending or going downward. Okay. Let's take a look at a present progressive yes or no question. To do this, I start with the form of be. So again, am, is, are, right? Then I have my subject, and then the ing form the word. My example sentence here is his face drooping? Right? And actually, this could be something very wise to pay attention for, especially as people get older and they age. So if someone's face kind of falls right downward, and it's very sudden, it's very out of the blue, it could be a sign of a stroke. So recognizing that quickly could help the person get medical care, so that the effects of the stroke are not as severe. Now let's talk about the simple future. Today we're going to focus on making sentences with will. Will is very common when people talk about the future to make promises. Or maybe they're making predictions about things that might, or things that are likely, I should say, likely to happen in the future. You might hear people use it to discuss their plans, a little less common. You also hear it with offers as well. So the nice thing about making sentences in the simple future with will is that our structure is going to stay the same no matter what our subject is. So we'll have our subject, we'll have will, and then we have the base verb. No suffixes, no special endings. Okay, you can see this in my example. This arrangement will droop if it gets too much sunlight. Right? So again, here, someone is likely making a prediction about what will happen in the future. So again, going to bend, fall downward. Okay. Now, if I want to make a negative sentence in the simple future, I start with my subject, I use will not, and then the base verb. You might also hear the contraction won't. You can see that in my example here. Your eyelashes won't droop throughout the day with this new mascara. Okay. Saw a sentence like this, advertising, right? This is makeup we wear on our eyelashes, right? And so it's that idea of like they're going to stay curled, they're going to stay up, they're not going to fall, right? This would be an example of a promise a particular company is making. Finally, let's look at a yes or no question with will. To do this, I start with will, then I have my subject, and then the base verb. Here's the last one. Will these socks droop when I wear them? This sentence was actually something that came up in one of my classes, and this video was inspired by some questions from my students. So this phrasing was actually used with an advertisement for socks. Again, this idea that they're going to kind of fall down and not stay up on your leg. Now let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb droop. And the first word we're going to look at is the noun form of this word. So this can be any act or instance of drooping. It could also refer to kind of a limp, a negative, a tired sort of attitude. That's what weary or tired has a similar meaning there. An example of this might be facial droop can be a sign of several medical issues. I just mentioned this a couple minutes ago, that if suddenly someone's face, right, kind of looks like it's falling downward, or using our verb here, drooping, right, that can be a sign. In this sentence, droop is being used as a noun if it comes kind of slowly. So you don't see it immediately, but slowly over a period of time, maybe weeks or months, you start to notice that. I think that can be a sign of like a brain tumor, right? And there might be some other medical issues that would cause someone's face to kind of fall slightly or droop here. Now, another related word you might encounter is the adjective droopy. This can mean that something is hanging down limply, in a limping sort of way. An example of this, you might hear someone say, do my eyelids look droopy? And sometimes we use that even as kind of like a sign of someone getting tired, right? The eyelids here are getting harder and harder to keep up and open. Now, a second way the adjective droopy gets used is to refer to someone or something that's lacking strength or spirit, right? So we might think of kind of like energized, kind of the opposite of it. An example of this, the team looked droopy in the first half, right? Were they trying, right? Where was their energy? Doesn't seem like they want to win. That's what that sentence is trying to convey or share. The last word we're going to talk about today is the adverb droopingly. And I try and get my students to notice that ly pattern very frequently, an adverb in English. So here we're describing either an adjective or a verb. So in a way that bends or hangs down in sort of a heavy way. An example of this might be, she moved droopingly through the house after her friends canceled their plans, right? So here we can kind of think of like, someone is not in a good mood, they're sad, they were looking forward to something, but for whatever reason, someone has canceled, right? So now droopingly is describing how this person is walking around their home. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.